Welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So I just flew in back to Florida yesterday from California. I was gone the entire week of the Hurricane Ian, which definitely affected my area. Luckily, my studio is okay. The only thing that I can see that got blown away a bit or messed up was our mandala of Vishnu and Shiva, which they just fell down, which I like to think that they just took a hit for the team and kept the studio safe, which, my studio is safe. I'm incredibly grateful. And now that I'm back, just like watching all the footage of what happened in Fort Myers, I am very drawn to serve my community. And so today, actually, after this podcast, I'm going to be leading a yoga class with all proceeds going to the community cooperative effort, which is a soup kitchen in Fort Myers. And they're not just a soup kitchen, they're also like a Meals on Wheels type of organization where they go out and actively find people and distribute food. And they've been doing that since like the day after Hurricane Ian happened. So they're super active, they're super ambitious, and I just kind of aligned with them. So it's interesting to come back to my home after they have been through so much, destruction and stress. So I'm just trying to keep myself centered so that I can be of great service to my community. So today's podcast, I would like to share with you what's called emotional dysregulation hacks. So when I was away at my friend Mfan's, hi Mfan, I love you. We had an amazing time. And Wednesdays, I do this. It's called Eat for Life with Dr. Lynn Rossi. You might know her from the book. It's like Savor Every Bite, and maybe it's like the Emotional Eating Solution. Don't quote me on that last book. But anyways, you can look her up. Her name is Dr. Lynn Rossi. For sure, Savor Every Bite is one of her books. But she's a well-known author, and she works with people post-eating disorder recovery, which, is me. And I have noticed that I still have little remnants of like anxieties around food, around my body. And, this year is my Saraswati year. And so I'm committed to diving in deep and finding blind spots and patterns. And just so you know, if you're a seeker, you know this. It's like the work is never done. And it doesn't mean that I don't accept myself. I do, but everybody has blind spots. And I've certainly had my fair share of trauma, just like you may have had. So if you are on the path and you're like, man, I can't believe I uncovered this big thing that I haven't addressed yet in my life. Like, how long have I been doing this work? Skip the shame story and just know that we all have work to do. It's never done, and that's okay. It really is. It'll keep you growing. So for me, I know that there's little blind spots around eating, and I get like really anxious when I have to eat, and a lot of times I would want to check out. And so she had this course coming up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. Anyways, this last Wednesday, we did sort of like very slow mindful eating, which I try to practice. Not great at it. just to be honest, not great at it. But I do have select times where I try to do it as best I can. So I was doing that, and that was fine. Immediately after, though, we had this meditation. It was like love and compassion meditation for your body. So I don't know if it was that, like right after the snack or whatever, but she was like guiding us through this meditation. I had a huge trauma response, like just kind of bubbled up from the depth of my stomach all the way up into my heart and throat. And I just sat there like holding space around this absolute terror, not knowing where it came from, having tears stream down my cheeks and like shaking. And so when we came back, it was like a 10-minute meditation. She's like, does anybody want to share their experience? And I immediately unmiked myself. I was like, she said, how are you doing? And I said, I feel absolute terror. And I just started crying, and like, I guess the vulnerability really opened up the group, which like, I don't know if it's because all the trauma I've had that I am very vulnerable with people, and it definitely helps others to be vulnerable. I don't know if it's that, or it's just like I'm committed to growing, and I know that you have to share to grow. And so I did, and the group was very touched, and she was very touched. I actually had somebody from the group reach out to me privately. So anyways, what Lynn taught me was, because I was like, listen, I have all my tools, but right now, when you're in that space of terror, like the limbic system takes over, you forget everything. Like, unless you have something like right in front of you. And I didn't prepare myself for it. I didn't like write down all the 32 tools that I have like in front of me. I was just like shaking. I was like, so if you have any like advice, I'm open to it. Like, just shaking and crying. And she actually gave me a new tool. And that's what I want to share with you today. So these are called neurovascular holds. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, which by the way, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, cool. I will describe this as best I can, but this video will be available on YouTube, so you might want to see what I'm doing, but I will try to describe it as best I can. So she instructed me to take my right hand and just cup the back of my cranium, and with my left hand, just lay my hand across my forehead. So my pinky is touching right above my eyebrow, and then my index finger is kind of all the way up to the top of my forehead. And then just hold. So I'm holding with medium pressure. I'm breathing. And this particular hold that I'm describing is one for fear. So I was here, and, you know, if you're watching the video, I had like tears streaming down my face. I was shaking, but I was like, here, I'm your student. Please teach me. I'm your duckling. Please. After about 3 minutes of breathing and just holding on, I started to feel a shift, which was interesting for me because I've done body work for a long time. I'm familiar with craniosacral techniques, but as far as like holding patterns, just holding space there, I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like in a 3-minute period so effective. So then she went on, she said, okay, well, if you're experiencing anger, which is what I'm going to demonstrate next, then you cup your palms around your temples, and then you wrap your hands around the front of your forehead. So if you can see what I'm doing here, I actually, I used this one this morning, and I'm going to record another podcast about a little bit more about my experience with living with a 4-year-old for a week. But I'm on my way here, I was like looking through my bag, and I really wanted an apple that I had bought when I was in Arcata, and I didn't see it in my bag, and I got so angry, like unreasonably angry that I didn't have my apple. I just really had my heart set on that apple. And so anyways, I sat in the parking lot, and I did this, and after 3 minutes, wouldn't you know, I felt this heat rush up, and I was perfectly okay with not having the apple. Funny story, I actually checked, like, it had fallen out of the bag onto my car seat. And so when I pulled up at the studio, I did have my apple, and I did eat it. So, inner tantrums of a 38-year-old. Okay, so we went over fear, anger, and the last one is worry. Now, when she showed this one, I was like, oh, I do this all the time. Like, I just do it unconsciously. I'm always like I'll like rub my face like this. Like, I'm taking my hands and I'm kind of putting them down across my cheeks. But you just hold it, right? So it's kind of, think of playing peekaboo with a kid, with a child. And you just kind of hold it there. And this one is for worry. So if you're worried, you just hold it here. My fingertips are almost touching my like scalp, my hairline. And my hands are just cupping my face. I feel a little bit of pressure on my cheekbones, which is really when I feel worried or just stressed, I definitely like rub for my forehead and cheekbones. That's just something I do. If you ever hang out with me, if I'm tired or if I'm stressed or worried, you will see me do that. And that's something that I've been doing for years, and I just didn't realize I was trying to soothe myself. Like, my body is wise and was trying to soothe itself. So I'm trying to make my podcast episodes shorter because I think that when I do that, first of all, I can record more. So I'm hoping that I can let out maybe 2 podcast episodes a week now. So you get more of me just in shorter spurts. So I hope that this helps you, because when you feel emotionally dysregulated, you can fall back into old patterns. You can do things that are kind of like unreasonable, like me with the apple. Like, that was my relationship with myself and my attachments to like a piece of fruit. And like, if anyone was sitting next to me, they probably would have heard me cursing. And then I regulated myself and I was like, okay. And then the apple came anyway, right? So I got what I wanted. But anyone who's experienced trauma, I think this is a great tool. So yeah, I hope that this episode helps you. Little snack size episode of Thrive with Erin. And yeah, I hope that you have a fantastic day. And if you are looking to do any of my programs, again, I am doing a coach program January 20th to the 27th. I have 6 spots left for that. And then I am doing my Costa Rica yoga teacher training June 10th to the 23rd. That's 2023. And that one, I have 5 spots left. They're going quick, folks. So if you're interested, you got to message me, Erin at erincoach.com. Check out thriveyogafit.com, and let's get you enrolled. And if you're in person, of course, I'm doing my yoga teacher training, my signature one. We meet once a month. So if you're local and you want to do yoga teacher training with me, that one, when you enroll, you do get unlimited yoga at the studio. So my little gift to you. All right, that's it for now. Thank you so much, and namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin at erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up, and it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning, and not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.